My presentation is called Thinking Critically in the Classroom. Part of this presentation is going to be discussing 5 domains which I feel are needed to be an effective special education teacher. Another part of this presentation is going to be talking about how these domains are connected to the Common Core assessment. And finally, a third part of this assignment is going to be connecting the 5 domains to a book called The Thinking Life by P.M. Forney. Before I start on the 5 domains, I want to talk a little bit about the book The Thinking Life. The Thinking Life, like I said, was written by P.M. Forney. What P.M. Forney talks about in this book is how to think critically and all the different strategies that people can use to become better thinkers in the environment that we live in today. He uses the word distraction, which I think is very important for us to think about in our future classrooms. Our students are going to be very distracted by a lot in our classroom, and it's up to us to keep them on that thinking track. And these 5 domains can be great ways for us to help our students learn to think critically, as well as helping them do well on the Common Core assessment. All right, let's get started with the first domain. The first domain is create culturally inclusive environments. What does that mean, create culturally inclusive environments? What I interpreted that is creating environments that are accepting of all children no matter what their background is. But also helping children understand that it's okay for their opinions to be heard. It's okay for them to think outside the box. No one will be judged. No one's opinion will be wrong. No one's thinking is going to go unnoticed. How does this connect with the Common Core assessment? This connects with the Common Core assessment because children on the Common Core are not going to be asked simple questions. An example that we used in class was talking about there are 2 different kinds of questions that could be asked about the government. The first one was what are the 3 branches of the government? That question's easy. The 3 branches of the government are the executive, legislative, and judicial branch. The other question, the question that might be on the Common Core, is how do the 3 branches of government interact with each other? Notice that one's open-ended question. That one can be open for all kinds of different things, whereas the first question is simply list the 3 branches, and that's it. What I feel that creating culturally inclusive environments can help our students do better on the Common Core because they'll be invited to think critically no matter what their situation is, which can help them do better because they'll be more receptive to ideas in a culturally inclusive, warm, nurturing learning environment. If the environment's rigid and people aren't invited to think amongst themselves, then they're probably not going to want to think critically because they'll be afraid. They'll be afraid that their opinion is wrong. But in a culturally inclusive environment, the student will be able to think a lot more outside the box, which can help them do better on the Common Core assessment. Now, how does this connect to the Thinking Life? How this connects to the Thinking Life is that he gives a lot of examples on how to think critically. And one example that he talks about is the idea of paying attention. As teachers, if we pay attention in our classroom, our students will be able to notice a lot more about our students, which in turn can help us create that environment for students to be able to think outside the box. And also, wise decisions are required for this as well, because our students need to know that we're making decisions that can help benefit them in their future, and they're not decisions that can only benefit us. The second domain is utilize a variety of content-appropriate strategies. What does this mean? Well, some teachers use the same strategy all the time, and quite frankly, it's very boring. There's no variety, there's no nothing in it, it's the same thing over and over and over again. But as special education teachers, we can create strategies that can help our students learn so much more than just what is required. How does this connect to the Common Core? Well, since students are going to need to provide detail on their answers and support and think outside the box, it's up to us as teachers to be able to get them to this point by showing them that we have variety as well. If we model variety in our instructional strategies, maybe our students will be able to provide variety in their answers. How does this relate to the thinking life? Well, first of all, we need to make wise decisions in the strategies that we decide to teach. If we're thinking, oh, we're just going to teach one way because it's easy, isn't going to work out because the students are going to think it's boring and they're not going to learn a lot from us. We need to be able to think of strategies that are very colorful and get them to actually think a lot deeper than they have before. And in order to do that, we have to be proactive too. We have to think ahead and think, what will my students like from this? Not what will I like, what's easiest for me, but what is the best for our students. The next domain, the third domain, is make instructional decisions that are data-driven. What does this mean? This means make decisions that are based on the students in our class. That isn't so emotionally based. Sometimes we make instructional decisions that are very emotional. We make any kind of decision that's emotionally based, and it ends up becoming a lot more difficult. But we need to think of it in terms of keeping it factual. No emotion running into it, but make instructional decisions that are basically, no emotion into it. That's the best way that I can put it. How does this relate to the Common Core? Well, students need to provide details that aren't so emotionally based, but provide facts to get them there. And sometimes I feel like if we don't do that, then our students aren't going to do that either. And it's very important for us to create that for our students, to show them that since we're doing the right thing, they should do the right thing as well. How do we get to this point from the thinking life? Well, how we can do this is first of all by being proactive, not waiting until the last minute, but thinking about the instructional decisions ahead of time and making sure that they work for us and they work for our students. Also, paying attention to the students in our classroom. That can help as well. Actually, paying attention could be something that could be used for everything in this presentation, all the domains being used. Paying attention is key because paying attention can lead to a better life, not just for us, but for our students. I would recommend paying attention for every domain being used in this presentation. Thinking about domain number 4, collaborate effectively with peers, school personnel, families, and communities. This means that we need to collaborate effectively with the people that we know, because we can gain new ideas from working with people that we know, and it actually works out better for us as a result because we gain fresh ideas, fresh perspective, and we can do better on projects and different things. How does this relate to the Common Core? Well, the Common Core needs supporting details. The questions are based on providing details, not just one answer. And sometimes ideas can become a little bit foggy and a little tired if you keep using them over and over again. But collaborating effectively with peers can help our students provide fresh perspective on the Common Core, which as a result, they'll end up doing better on the test, which can help them good for us and good for everybody. Now, how does the thinking life come into play here? The thinking life comes into play because sometimes you have to be positive in order to collaborate with other people. You always have to be positive, because if you're being negative, no one's going to want to collaborate with you, and then as a result, you're never going to get fresh perspective, and you probably won't do that well. Another thing too is paying attention. Thorndike says that paying attention is good because you become a better listener. And he said that there is nothing that people like more than being validated for what they've done correctly. And if you're listening and paying attention, you'll be able to see what other people have been doing. And as a result, people will want to work with you, and that can help our students and us as teachers. The fifth domain is exhibit routine and adaptive expertise for teaching. Well, this says that in changing environments, we need to be exhibiting expertise and adaptive changes. So basically, if something happens that we can't control, we have to exhibit that we have done that before. Even if we haven't, we have to at least fake it until we make it, so that people can see that we're not stunned by change. How does this relate to students taking the Common Core assessment? What this means is that students will be able to do well on questions that they've never heard of before because they are able to think critically. They're able to think critically about these things, and as a result, be able to do well on the questions that they haven't heard of before. And it's good for us as well, because the students will be able to come at the Common Core with a much better perspective, because they know what they're doing, even if they come to a question they don't understand. How can we relate this to the thinking life? We can relate this to the thinking life because as teachers, we talk all about how students need to pay attention to their environment, because environments are changing constantly. And if they're paying attention and we're paying attention, then we'll be able to remember these ideas that have happened, and as a result, if something new comes around, we'll be able to be experts on how to handle it. As well as knowing that we can manage adversity, Thorndike talks about how managing adversity can really help us in the future. And I would think that adaptive expertise for teaching would lead all about to dealing with things that are different than you are. Things that happen in our classroom environment, children getting hurt, relationships, things like that. And if we are able to manage that adversity, we'll be able to help our students as well as become great teachers in the process. Thank you for listening to my presentation, and I hope you have a good day.